Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding. This will be my 4th episode of my road to the Arnold Classic series. This is going to be a good one today. We have two of the most popular guys heading into the show in today's comparison. They're both in that mass with class realm. They're the top 2 open bodybuilders in Brazil. Today we will be comparing Rafael Brandao from his last showing at the 2022 Olympia against Marcelo De Angelis, aka Horse MD, from his last showing at the 2023 Romania Pro. Now yes, Rafael is expected to look much bigger at this event, and I understand that. And I personally do think Rafael will be bigger and overall different from the version we're using today. But the version we are using is still his most recent, so we'll just have to consider this comparison with a grain of salt. But to be fair to Horse, he's literally only done one pro show, so he can peak a lot differently as he gets the hang of being on these bigger pro show stages. Let's use this video to see how much Rafael was ahead of Horse, if he even was ahead at all. And then at the end, we'll discuss what we need to see from either guy if they want to win, or in Brandao's case, if he wins this comparison, what he would need to do to keep winning, and what his margin was even with an older version. So here it is, the Battle of Brazil, Horse versus Rafael. If you guys like these types of videos, be sure to hit that like button, and if you want to stay up to date on my future Arnold Classic previews, make sure you subscribe as well. As we can see in the front double, these guys do have some similarities outside of being from Brazil. Like I said in the beginning, both guys have pretty good lines and great legs. I think both guys are actually a little bottom heavy if you ask me. And for the height, they're going to be roughly the same. I think Horse MD is close to 6 foot based on what his classic weight cap was when he tried to compete in classic, and I think Rafael's around 5'10 or 5'11. But just to be sure, I took a look at a video of them around each other, and I do stand by the fact that Horse will probably be just a little bit taller. Anyway, who's winning the front double biceps? Well, let's start with talking about the arms. I have Horse here. I like those rounder, peakier biceps. His forearms do throw this off a little bit. He definitely needs to bring those up, but I don't think it's enough to give the arms to Rafael. Now, in terms of the outline slash silhouette, this is where it gets a little interesting. Brandao is slightly more narrow. We can see that in his rib cage and a little through the shoulders and the wingspan. Horse is just meant to be a big dude, and he does have the more imposing structure, but not the better proportions. I think his waist is a bit bigger while his lats are also less pronounced than Brandao's, which makes his upper body taper slightly underwhelming compared to Rafael's. But both guys have good legs, so they at least have decent X-frames. I do think Horse is slightly better in terms of looking like the letter X, but I definitely like Rafael's balance and flow more. So in terms of bodybuilding and looking through an open division lens, I think Horse wins the silhouette for the better X-frame and more mass. But Rafael definitely wins in the aesthetics department, so I see the argument for him winning. I personally like him more, but this is open bodybuilding. As of right now, we can see there would be a huge size difference between these two versions, and this is going to be a common theme throughout this comparison. There's probably like a 20 to 25 pound difference between these two, and that's going to be noticeable. It is here, but Rafael is helped out a lot by his lines and proportions, but I just don't think they're helping enough. Horse has the more exaggerated X-frame, more mass, and better arms, so I'm giving him this one with a slight victory. I personally like Rafael more, but I think he's giving up too much size with this version. Horse better watch out on this one though, because if Rafael just adds a little more size, I can see myself easily going with Rafael at the Arnold Classic. Now, Horse will have more size on Brandao in this comparison, but another common theme in this video is going to be Horse's terrible posing. Quite frankly, he makes a lot of dumb mistakes and he looks like an amateur. Take a look at the front lat spread, for example. Horse doesn't have a true gut, his stomach is pretty flat and his abs are really good, but he is trying his absolute hardest to push his stomach out. And with that quote-unquote choice, he's making his waist look really wide, which obscures his taper. Take a look at Brandao on the other hand. That is how you hit a front lat spread. It's perfect in terms of execution. And with this better execution and slightly better proportions, just by glancing at these two, we can see that he's taking this one pretty easily. But let's go body part for body part, starting with the legs. Both guys are huge and they both have the sweep, but we see more separation in Brandao's quads even with the worse lighting. Horse should have consciously flexed those because I think he could have won this one. And then going up, we've already talked about what Horse's waist looks like. Brandao has no issues like that. He's keeping that waistline in check and flat, and he's not trying to push it out like Horse. And then going up to the all-important lats, I definitely have to go with Rafael. I think his lats extend further out and insert a bit lower. And if we zoom out just a little bit to examine just the torso, you can see that with Rafael's tighter waist and better lats, he's winning the upper body taper, no question. Finally, in terms of all those upper body details, I'm going with Rafael in about every area. I actually prefer him in the arms now, and that includes the delts. I think he looks thicker in the bi and tri and has clearer separation between delt, bi, and tri. Zooming back out, all I have left to say is Brandao looks like a statue. Like I said, it's a perfect pose. Horse looks unprofessional despite being bigger, he's throwing off his proportions, and I think Rafael just has better proportions to begin with. With the better outline, presentation, and the win in the lats, Rafael takes the front lat spread. In the side chest, Horse does begin to make up some ground. The emphasis in a shot like this is not on better proportions and aesthetic, it's on thickness and more mass from the side. And we know that even by now, Rafael with this Olympia version was giving up a lot of size to Horse, and that's going to spell trouble for him in shots like these. Let's take a look at the pecs for example. Horse wins here with a little more mass and more detail. I do like the way Brandao's pecs look though, they're full and they have that nice square look to them. And the arm and delt, I again prefer Horse. Again, he seems to have a little more detail and separation between the bi, tri, and delts, and I like how his bicep peaks even here in the side angle. And in the side leg, Horse scores a big victory. I think these guys are close in the quads from the front, but not from the side. Horse looks drier on top of having more quad mass and much more hamstring drop. And then when we do look at the pose as a whole, we can see who is looking more muscular from the side, and that's clearly Horse. He looks a lot more filled out here. Horse really excels here. He has more mass from this angle, the slightly better pecs, and the better side leg as well. All the ground Horse made up from the side is immediately tossed out when we turn these guys around. Rafael is definitely not known for his back. It's pretty wide, but in terms of thickness and detail, he falls pretty far behind a lot of other competitors. But Horse is just on another level of bad. And I'm sorry, but I don't see how he's going to make this one up for the Arnold. He could tweak his pose a little bit maybe, but I think his problems are deeper than just his presentation. Rafael doesn't have that super deep detail, but Horse just looks like a bag of milk. There's absolutely nothing going on detail-wise in that back. And it's oddly narrow too. There's no real taper because of the lack of width. It definitely says something when Brandao is smoking you in terms of thickness from the back. I'd even give Brandao the arms and delts. Horse is doing something weird with his arms and rolling them forward. With that execution, it makes his bicep peaks flatten out and it hides his front delts and rounds them forward as well, so they don't look as big. Brandao has the better looking arms and his delts are double the size of Horse's. We don't even need to consider the lower body in this one. Brandao already won this pose and we'll get to it in the next shot anyway. So without even considering half of the pose, Horse's back is so weak that he loses this one right from the jump. Now when we go to the second back pose, the rear lat spread, it's a night and day difference for Horse. Where was all this width in the last pose? I was talking about how wide Brandao was, but now Horse is notably wider than him, which is a key win. Now is Brandao narrow? No, far from it. He's still very wide, but Horse's lats have just exploded from the last pose. I would give Rafael a couple of areas though. I think in terms of detail, he still wins, but that's not as important in this pose. I think Rafael does have the thicker back, but he also has the tighter and drier back. And the other main area I'd give him is the taper, and that area is pretty important for the shot. You could be really wide, but if you don't have that good taper, it's going to look off. Rafael sacrifices a little bit of width, but has the much better V taper in the upper body. Horse does have good taper, but it isn't as exaggerated. Now in the lower body, both guys trade off. In the glutes, I have Brandao. Horses are underdeveloped and have a touch of sogginess. Rafael doesn't have the most shredded glutes, but he definitely has enough in terms of dryness while having more development to beat Horse. Going a little lower though, I have Horse winning the hamstrings. Brandao's are developed and separated. The lighting isn't doing him any favors, but Horse wins in terms of thickness of the hamstrings while they're also more dug out. Overall, I think Horse does enough up top and in the lower body to come from behind and get a surprise victory in this one. In the side tricep, Brandao looks pretty good. His waist is tight, he's very aesthetic. But is that the main criteria being judged? Not for me, definitely not in open. I can see the arguments for Brandao winning this one if you look at bodybuilding through the aesthetic lens only, but I have Horse on this one. Remember, these side shots are all about looking thickly muscled from the side, and Horse is definitely packing on more muscle. We can see that clearly from this angle. So he wins in terms of overall thickness. And then going body part for body part doesn't make things any easier for Brandao. That crazy side leg returns from Horse's side chest pose. Brandao looks a little better, but look at Horse's crazy hamstring drop. Not to mention he still has more size and lines on the quad. Moving upstairs to the midsections, I do think this is where the main argument is going to be for Brandao. Horse's midsection looks a little chunky here, and the skin on top of his abs looks a little weird. Brandao has the more streamlined midsection for sure. Horse doesn't have a bubble gut, it's just a little weird to me, and he does look a little thick here, and this is the one area at the pose where you don't want that. Going around the upper body though, Horse maintains a lead. He's got the better delt, there's more pop and more detail there, but most importantly, Horse takes the tricep. He's a little more pronounced and separated on top of being a little thicker. Brandao is fine, but it's just that, fine. He doesn't have the pop of Horse or that level of separation between the rest of the arm. Horse wins in the key areas yet again, with overall more thickness from the side and the tricep. I think you can argue Rafael's aesthetics allow him to overtake Horse on some of the other shots, but in these side shots, I just don't see it. So Horse makes it 2 for 2 in the side poses. The abs and thighs is a good pose for both guys, but I'm sorry, I think I have to make a controversial call here. First, let's take a look in the abs. This is Horse's area. He's got a true six-pack, good girth to the abs, and separation between them. The only thing I want from his midsection / torso area is more taper, but he straight up wins in the abs because of his superior development and insertions. Rafael's abs aren't bad, he's just sporting a six-pack. Rafael's obliques are good, but Horse has some shredded ones as well. I would probably give Rafael the taper aspect. His lat that he is showcasing is huge, and that tapers very nicely. But with this posing choice, we don't don't see too much of his taper. It's being downplayed. So Horse wins with the abs, but does he also win in the quads? Well, I think he definitely will win in a lot of people's minds. The size and sweep is definitely there, and he has a good amount of separation. You can't go wrong with picking him. But for my money, I'm going with Brandao. He has the size too, we know that, but I like the feathering and the extra detail present in his quads. But unfortunately, even though I am giving the win to Rafael in the quads, I don't think he takes the entire pose. Look, Horse has the abs. I think that's fairly objective. Although I gave the quads to Rafael, I can see an argument for Horse there. I could not see an argument for Rafael in the abs. So in a sum of parts, so to speak, Horse comes out on top in this one. I get that this is probably blasphemy to a lot of you. Rafael is a beacon of aesthetics in the modern era of bodybuilding, and he is aesthetic, but he loses the abs to Horse and maybe the quads depending on who you are. I can't believe it myself, but I just don't have Rafael winning this one. In the most muscular, I'm not too thrilled with either guy. We know Rafael lacks the size, he's pretty wide structurally, so that helps, but he also doesn't have the detail in the chest and shoulders region, so he's lacking two major factors. On the other hand, Horse's pose definitely needs some tweaking, but he is bigger and looks freakier, and that's what this shot is all about. He's got some mountainous traps, huge delts, and I actually like how his bicep peaks look here. I wish his chest was more striated, and like I said, I would make some posing tweaks, like having him flex the legs a bit better and lift his entire body up so we can see more of the chest, but as is, he does have the biggest thing you can have going for you in this shot going for him: muscle. I think Rafael looks good, he's very proportional, but this is one shot where we can all agree mass is just about always going to win. It's in the name of the pose. We want to see the biggest, freakiest, most muscular guy. Horse doesn't bring the best most muscular, but he fits the bill more accurately being the more muscular guy in this comparison. So to round this one out, Horse takes the last pose. Well, I'm sure this will not be the popular outcome, but I have Brandao losing this comparison easily. He only won 2 poses to Horse's 6. Horse won the front double, rear lat spread, both side poses, abs and thighs, and the most muscular. Rafael only won the front lat spread and the rear double. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me. Rafael has a very big and supportive fan base, and you can definitely count me in as one of those people. But holy is this frustrating. I have to rant here for a second because I have Horse winning this comparison, but I have to be honest, that's not what I wanted to happen. But it was clear to me. This is a comparison that Rafael should be winning easily. He's losing to a guy that just had his pro debut a couple of months ago. But Brandao has one fatal flaw. We all know it. He knows it. We've been saying it for years. He needs more size. I went back and looked through photos. Just take the 2019 Arnold Classic as an example against the 2022 Olympia version. What improvements do you see? I was thinking a little more meat in the back and chest, but boy is that minimal. And if you look elsewhere, you're not going to find any other improvements, and there are 3 years between these photos. Rafael has the shape and aesthetics on his side. We get that. That's why we all love him. But when someone like Horse comes along, someone with great shape too, but with more muscle, what's Rafael's argument? This is a bodybuilding contest after all, not a small waist contest. So what? Horse beats him in shape. Horse beats him in overall size and probably conditioning too. And sure, Rafael is more complete because Horse really had a deficit in that back double, but when you're getting outsized by 20 to 30 pounds, Horse can make up that ground no problem in other shots. In terms of who I like more and who I want to look like more, it's an easy conclusion. That's Rafael Brandao. But in terms of who wins on a bodybuilding stage, in this comparison, I have Horse MD winning. Now, is this what I expect when the Arnold Classic does roll around? That's a bit tricky, but it's not impossible for Horse to overtake Brandao. As unpopular as that will be, and as much as I would rather that not be the case, we saw in this comparison that Horse can at minimum hold his own. But Rafael has listened to everyone around him, and he has taken the last year off to do what? Add size. And in the updates, I think there were some gains made for Rafael. It's not like a 1992 to 93 Dorian Yates transformation, although I wish it was, but I think it is at least something. But I'm not exactly too blown away, I have to say. The more I look and compare him to his past preps, I think he looks a little too similar. I could be wrong. I really am holding out for him until show day. I want him to do very well this year. Rafael does have some things going for him. If the judges want aesthetics and they weight that a little more this year, as I expect they will, that will help Rafael a lot. If I did that in this comparison, I think Rafael could have picked off another pose at least, maybe even 1 or 2 more than that. Rafael also has better presentation. Horse's posing is quite awful, to put it bluntly. Rafael is much more composed and effective on stage. And finally, I do think Rafael is more complete. He is giving up a lot of size, but he didn't have a pose like Horse's rear double. That was a major loss for Horse. Rafael didn't have a single pose where he lost by that much. Considering these things does make me a little more confident in Rafael, and so does the popular opinion. 67% of you think Rafael will get the dub over Horse MD, but to be fair, that is less than I thought Rafael would win this poll by. Nonetheless, Rafael is a top 10 Olympian, but he needs more size. I do think the judges will be looking for a physique like Rafael's, but they also want to see improvements. Maybe I just looked at this comparison with too much emphasis on mass and conditioning. Maybe bodybuilding will continue to move in the aesthetic direction. Maybe I should have even given Rafael more shots for having the more pleasing physique. The jury's still out for me on this one. I really want to go with Rafael, and I fully believe he can place over Horse MD. But I also fully believe that Horse MD is the real deal. We'll have to wait and see. Just remember, anything can happen on show day. But as of today, in this comparison, Marcelo DeAngelis is today's winner. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. I'm sure you guys are going to have all kinds of thoughts on this one, and I'm sure a lot of you will disagree, and I definitely want to see your arguments if you have Rafael winning. Let me know what I missed or how retarded I am for having Horse winning. I don't anticipate too many of you will agree with me, but if you do, definitely let me know why. Wherever you are on this one, leave me your thoughts down below. By the way, if you guys are looking for any high quality supplements and the ones I use personally, look no further than Arms Race Nutrition. Stock up on their different types of proteins, their different types of pre-workouts, but whatever you put in your cart, be sure to use my code PROJECT10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. That's code PROJECT10 at armsracenutrition.com. If you guys like the video and want to see more, be sure to hit that like button and then subscribe while you're at it to stay up to date on all my future 2024 Arnold Classic previews. You can find my previous installments in this series in a playlist popping up on your screen now. Finally, with all that said, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.
Gotta get that Lexia.